It is 1936 in the small community of Elkhorn, Wisconsin. The night watchman for the St. Coletta Catholic Convent sees a hairy, humanoid creature standing 6 to 7 feet tall and looks like a wolf or possibly a bear. The air is strong with the smell of rotting flesh. What is it that he saw? Was it a Bigfoot, a dog man, a man dog, or a werewolf? Welcome to Paranormal Playground, your spot for all things spooky and creepy. We are your hosts, Nick and Leah. Join us as we look into the Wisconsin legend, the Beast of Bray Road. The rural town of Elkhorn, Wisconsin is about an hour's drive from Milwaukee and Madison, Wisconsin. There are roughly about 6,500 residents in this small community town.
Fun fact. Okay, ready? Elkhorn is also known as the Christmas card town. It is. Because of the prairies and the cornfields all around it. And, okay, so Bray Road has a stretch of 17 miles. However, because I love my history, it was known as King's Highway in colonial times. So when you look up the colonial times of 1700s, part of that land, it's Wisconsin, used to be a Massachusetts colony.
Now enters our night watchman, Mark Shackleman, for the St. Coletta Catholic Convent.
So if that place is really familiar to you, it's because that's where Rosemary Kennedy was said to have her lobotomy. Another fun tidbit for you.
Was it where she was taken after her lobotomy or where she had it?
Either after or during. Okay. We're going to have to figure that out and talk about it.
Yeah. So now, back to the Beast. Now, at around midnight in 1936, Mark was walking the fields near the convent when he came to a Native American burial ground. From what I understand, there are a lot of burial grounds there, so this would not be odd to have a Native. Wisconsin does have a lot of Native American history. So, what did he see there was definitely not something anybody would have ever expected to run into. Now, standing on the top of the mound was a wolf-like creature on its upright, or standing. It was standing upright, but it was wolf-like, so it was standing on two legs, and it was clawing the ground. Now, Mark did a very peculiar move here. He decided to get closer to get a better look at the creature, but luckily for him, the creature fled.
Why would you get closer to a creature
that's 7 foot or 6 foot tall?
Yeah,
I don't know. Doesn't make sense to me either. But
I think it's something we would do.
We probably would. I've done some dumb things on ghost hunts. So, that very next morning, Mark told his wife what he saw.
She laughed at him.
She probably did. She probably gave him a lot of crap for it afterwards.
I would.
Yeah. Now, his description to his wife was that it had thumbs and little fingers that seemed shriveled, appearing shorter than on the hands. So I'm thinking the feet where he was standing.
It's a baby.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Yeah. So after dusk the next day, poor Mark, he decides to do something. I don't know why anybody would do this, but he goes back to the scene.
We totally would.
I would totally, yes. Yeah. I mean, but any sane person probably wouldn't. But are we sane?
No, not at all.
No, we're not. So, but that's okay. Um, so now we get this time the creature would return too by luck, and
So he went out there to really check something, and the creature comes back, and he happened to be the only one there to saw it.
yes,
Oh, okay.
well, it was St. Clovis is a Catholic type church asylum place,
I know.
so I don't think he was drinking. But now this time the creature did not flee like it did the night before. So it stood there unfazed by Mark. And he estimated that the creature stood close to 7 feet tall. The creature was covered with dark hair and gave off a very bad odor. Um, when I say bad odor,
Like
I'm not
wet
so.
dog?
Yeah, maybe wet dog, but it was more described as rotting flesh.
So he would know what rotting flesh smells like?
That, that's how he described it.
I'm really interested in this guy's life.
so, so the beast would look at Mark and make a growling sound, and it was kind of mean. So now, kind of mean. So now Mark, now he's no wimp. He was a capable, strong man in his 30s. So, but I don't know being in your 30s and a capable, strong man that you're gonna be able to handle a 7 foot tall wolf-like creature with claws. But
he was a former heavyweight boxer, so I mean,
yeah,
maybe he just had a lot of cojones. I don't know.
Yeah. So now this comes directly a quote from Mark. Then I did the only thing I could. I prayed to God to save me, and it turned out. Oh, and it turned and walked away. For a long time I stood there, that bad smell hung in the air, and then I said another prayer of thankfulness. I never saw that thing again or anything like it.
So he ventured back out after seeing it once, went looking for it. It showed up, it growled at him, and now he's going to start praying.
Yes, 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 yes.
I kind of feel like he brought that on.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, that's kind of like us going into a haunted location that's a little sketchy and we think something followed us, but we're going to go back in there and talk to it again, and then we'll leave, and then we'll sage ourselves.
Facts. Okay.
So,
all right.
same concept.
Got it.
Same concept.
Got it.
So, what do you think Mark saw?
Maybe it was, we're going to get deep here, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it was his own demons.
Okay. Well, I'm going to bring up a few theories here.
Okay.
Let's hear these theories. So one thought, and this is a very popular theory, is that Mark saw a hellhound. Now you may ask, what is a hellhound?
I was just about to ask you that.
Okay, well, a hellhound is a creature that is cited in ancient Europe and biblical literature. Their growl is described by writer Bob Thumbstraw. Yeah, Thumbstraw. Tough name to say. Halfway station between articulate speech and a silence void filled with emotion and power, but utterly lacking reason. So the growl the growl's kind of close, and we might have a third host here. Yeah, we do have a third host here. We have Leah's cat coming to visit.
Bye bye.
You know how that is when cats pop up on screens.
Seriously.
Yeah, which adds a little to the thing. So this theory has also been given little consideration among believers. So that is the theory that I found. Now, there's a lot of Dogman stories throughout the U.S. And these werewolf Dogman things have also been well known for in Europe. So it probably came over those folklore folk, folklore stories probably came from across the pond.
Well, again, given the history of Bray Road, it wouldn't surprise me that these stories kind of passed down as it was more of an English colony.
Right. So so now there have been other sightings, but we would have to wait quite a while for another sighting. The next big sighting, and it actually was over about 50 years. So we waited like 50 some years for some reports. And there was a couple of years where there were more reports, and lately there have not been. So now the first one, though, of the recent sightings, when I say recent, it's not really recent for us, but it's the fall of 1998. So it's
Listen
pretty.
here, that was recent, all right?
Yeah. So it was around 1:30 in the morning when a lorry and Drazi happened to be driving home on Bray Road. She was coming from a lounge in Elkhorn called the Jury Room, where she had just finished her work shift. She would see a massive creature on Bray Road while driving home. Luckily for her, its back was turned to her, so she figured it was best to just keep going before it noticed her. I don't. Do you think that's a now? Do you think that's a good plan? Would you just turn around, or would you push through like
Well,
jet through quick?
saw something like that. I, me,
Yeah, you.
I'd
Yeah,
stop and see pictures.
yeah. Yeah, we probably would.
Yeah.
Yeah, we would. So
But normal people probably would do what Lori did and just like take off.
she would glance back and see its front as she drove after she drove by though as well. So her account describes this. It was kneeling. Its elbows were up and its claws were facing out. So I knew it had claws. Well, if the claws are out and you see them, you know they have claws. Right? Right. So I remember the long claws. So she's really hooked on the claws.
Yeah.
So, no surprise, next thing's about claws. I thought it was holding something between the long claws.
Like a rabbit or something?
So the unnerving part is that you would think the creature would run, but it stared at her.
She's interrupting its lunch.
Pretty much. That's what I'm thinking. I don't know if it was a rabbit. She doesn't say what animal, but it could have been a rabbit or raccoon.
Right?
Right? Yeah.
I can see it being annoyed.
Yeah. So now this I do completely understand. This is something I would do. All right. So she went to the library the next morning to do some research and into what she saw. So she wanted to explain it. What did I see? She wanted to know. So um, this was, of course, before the internet and cell phones. You know,
it was the 90s, and I'm a child of the 90s.
Well, it was 89. So this was.
I think it's in 98.
89.
89.
89. So
I
was
still a child of the 80s.
Yes. Yeah. Well, so, instant research wasn't available to her, so she had to go to the library to find the information, right? Well, so and there was no Googling, so, she found this book, The Golden Book of Mysteries from 1976, and found an illustration that had the description werewolf. That night had a big impact on her, and she was sure to be alert every time she traveled on Bray Road.
So she thought she saw a werewolf.
Yes.
Okay.
That is one of the theories.
She was coming from a lounge, right?
It's called the lounge. It was called the lounge. She worked there, so it was probably like a bar type thing. Like,
Okay.
like
Was she maybe paid in shots or?
Yeah, my one rule of sightings and stuff is no matter how far fetched they sound, this goes for Bigfoot, UFO, Bray Road. There's a person behind that sighting, and she had the courage to come forward. So, um, was she hallucinating? We don't know. Did what did she see? Is there a logical explanation for it? We weren't there, so she just defined what she saw. That's kind of
Okay, so let's think about this for a second.
so. What
One
could
guy
be?
saw this creature,
Yep.
and then she saw this creature. He described it what sounded like a bear to me.
Mm-hmm.
She described it as a werewolf. Have we seen anything since?
Yes, actually, in 1991, there's
right.
another sighting.
Okay.
So, this happened on Halloween of 1991. A Doris Gibson. I was gonna say Gibson, but it's with a P, not a B. Gibson. This one's a little more exciting though. This one has some contact to it, so
Okay.
this should be interesting.
Like contact, like it attacked her?
Yeah, like it approached, not necessarily approached her, but attacked, like her car, I think. So we'll see.
All right.
So let's look at the notes here. Now it was a foggy night on Halloween on the on Bray Road when all of a sudden Doris hit something while driving. Well, what she hit was not small. It was big enough to raise her front tire off the ground.
It wasn't a body?
Well, okay, so, she went in to check into that. So, not knowing what she hit, she drove 50 feet and stopped to check her car for damage first. The alarming part was when she went to look behind her on the road where it was that she hit whatever she hit, right? This is her words. Here comes this thing. It was just running at me. It was no dog. It was bigger than me. I've never seen a human run like that, and my uncle was a track star.
All right. Okay.
Okay. So, what would you do if you were Doris?
Go back in my car. Something's running at me. I would say bear, but I'm just saying.
Okay.
I would still go with my car and try to run away.
Okay, so that's what she did. She quickly went back to her car and she sped off. No, but that was not the end of the ordeal.
Okay.
So this creature was able to catch her car and landed on the trunk of her car.
So it makes me think of that movie Jeepers Creepers.
Yes. Yes. So this creature caught her car and jumped onto the trunk of her car.
Okay.
Okay. Now, luckily for her, it slid off. When she got home, she would notice claw marks in her blue Plymouth sedan. That totally ages me by saying that. They don't make those anymore. We should pop up a picture of what a Plymouth sedan is. Oh, Sundance. Plymouth Sundance.
Sundance,
yeah.
It was a Sundance. Oh my gosh, I remember the Sundances.
Yeah, so
yes.
we should pop up how block like those cars were. But yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, I wanted that.
So yeah. Later that night, though, she would see it again. For some reason, she had to go back out.
Sounds like my kind of girl.
Well, so what happened was her friend needed to be picked up from a party that night. It was Halloween, so yeah, that goes. I can see that. On her way back from the party, her friend would point out what Doris had seen, and she said, Look at that thing. Doris saw it, and she wasted no time. Vroom, she was gone.
Well, but it was Halloween. What if it was a costume?
Okay.
I'm just saying.
The first time, though, it ran so fast, faster than she'd ever seen any human run. I mean, it was bigger than a dog, and it ran faster than a dog or a human. And it jumped on, and it left.
It did leave claw marks.
And it left claw marks in her Sundance, supposedly.
Well, this was in the 90s then, right?
Yeah, 91.
We had cameras. Did she not take pictures of the claw marks?
I did not see anything on the internet about that, but I mean,
see, if you don't take pictures, it didn't happen,
right? Yeah, that's. I mean, so, but that is her story. That's what she said she saw. Now, this topic would not be complete without mentioning Linda Godfrey. Just who, might you ask, is Linda Godfrey? Well, Linda Godfrey happens to be one of the most well-known investigators of the Beast of Bray Road and similar creatures sighted all over the U.S. Unfortunately, she passed away in 2022, but her blog is still available and accessible on the internet. In my search, in our search, we found a blog entry from her that addresses some of the most frequently asked questions um, about the Beast of Bray Road. I kind of five of them jumped out at me, and you seem pretty interested in like the history part of that. So
yep. All right. So in her blog, she started with, "What is Beast of Bray Road? Is it an animal? Is it a supernatural creature?" So it's a good question because what is the Beast of Bray Road? Now, I can't really say that I've seen the beast myself, and as you can tell from probably this podcast, I'm probably a bit of a critic on it. However, Linda gives the answer that there's not enough evidence to say it definitely was there. Okay.
mm-hmm.
So with that said, probably not everyone has seen the same creature as High, right?
Yeah, High.
So to add that not all the sightings are real, some could possibly be misidentifications or hoaxes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go with that.
I mean, my theory is it's a wolfman, or because I don't think it's a Bigfoot. I think it's either.
So you're going to go with Wolfman?
Wolfman or werewolf type thing.
Interesting, because she moves on to say, what time of the day is Wolfman usually seen? Most sightings occur during the times of 10:30 p.m. to 5 a.m. It's in most cases, but there are occurrences that happen during the day. Sometimes.
Sometimes.
Because Mark saw it during the day.
Yeah, no, he saw it at night.
I thought he saw it during the day.
The next day, yeah, yep, okay. And you would think that for a creature that doesn't want to really be seen, nighttime would be the time for it to be out, not daytime, because you're a lot more visible.
Okay. But what time of year is the beast frequently seen? So she had also said sightings can happen year round, but August to October is like the peak months for it.
So the Halloween spooky season.
Of course. Like, why not?
Okay.
Alrighty. So she also goes on in her blog to say, can I camp out on Bray Road? If you're wanting to see the beast, unfortunately, there's not a place on Bray Road to camp out. This is due to land being privately owned. And if you see that they're on the land, they'll probably call the police for trespassing. I'm sure this has happened many times.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately, it's not the only place to go and see the beast if you're brave enough to. So she says.
Mm-hmm.
This is the Kettle Moraine campgrounds. If you want to hike the remote trails, maybe look for it.
Just don't get lost, please.
Well,
I mean, don't go somewhere you can't get back from. Don't get yourself caught somewhere where if you do see the beast, it's going to take you out. That would probably be bad. You don't want to be dinner.
Facts. And then you can't tell your story, and then you're still going to have critics like me that doesn't believe you.
Yeah.
Because you're not here. Sorry. So where's the best place to see the beast? Most sightings are near cemeteries and old sacred burial sites and effigy mounds. Plus, there are other locations such as crossroads, churches, military sites, or other places that can cover and hide.
Which makes sense. I mean,
The cemetery thing, though, an Indian, like, really?
well, Kettle Moraine, I think they have a lot of.
They do.
So that would make sense if it was on a ancient Indian mound when that Mark Sheckelman saw it.
It makes sense.
So,
but I feel like
so
it's hoaxy.
Well, it's at least consistent.
Facts. Okay.
You know. So, well, we hope this is useful information. Um, I mean, but we do the ghost hunting side of things. And just like ghost hunting, you want to have permission to go into these places. If you're going to go look for, you are going to drive it. You can drive the road.
Yes.
But if you want to investigate and stop and stuff, it's always best to get permission to be there. Mm-hmm. So now, there were two earlier sightings published, or the two earlier sightings were published in the local paper The Week, and this prompted more people to come forward. So we do have a few more sightings that happened, and this actually comes from an article from www.godsandmonsters.com titled "The Wisconsin Werewolf." The first one happened in 1964, which does not go with my 50 years, but that's like big ones. This is kind of a smaller one. In Jefferson County, Wisconsin, Dennis Fewlis was driving on Highway 89 around midnight. Dennis would see a figure running across the road. When the creature came into Dennis's headlights, he saw an eerie, similar werewolf described in 1936. The creature was large and muscular, stood around 7 feet tall, covered in dark brown hair with a dog-like face. And that's why I say a werewolf. Because,
okay, that makes sense.
Felix saw the creature running across the road and it jumped over barbed wire and disappeared a barbed wire fence and disappeared into a cornfield. Dennis waited till daylight the next day and returned to the scene, hoping to find tracks or some kind of proof. Because technically, like you said, if you don't have proof, it didn't happen, right?
Right.
Okay, and we always like to have proof. So, but there were no tracks. The ground was hard, so it did not leave any tracks, and there was no fur in like the barbed wire fence or anything like that. He didn't find any fur in fencing. So,
but if it's that big, right, then I'm assuming it would be heavy. Mm-hmm. And there's got to be some sort of track. This is where I'm getting my.
Well, the ground. He said the ground was hard, so we're kind of like when the ground's hard, we don't leave tracks either. So,
was there a disturbance to any of the ground?
And all the articles said the ground was hard, so it was too hard to leave tracks. Okay. So, but and then in 1972 in Jefferson County again, a woman called 911. Now she did not give her name, so this is somebody who's unidentified, and she heard someone trying to break into her rural home in the middle of the night. Upon further investigation, it appeared that it was not human, but a large animal. A few weeks passed, and the creature returned. But this time the woman got a look at the creature, and she would describe it as 8 feet tall, covered in dark brown hair, and stood on two legs with hands that had long, sharp claws. So that's consistent with our others.
Sure.
When the creature failed to get in the house, it went to the barn and attacked a horse. The horse was alive but had deep cuts across its back. Now, the horse did recover, to my knowledge. So, but it did,
now if it's a werewolf or whatever it is, I'm mad at it because you attacked the horse.
Right.
He's alone.
So this one was a home invasion attempt. I don't know, but the description's pretty spot on from what has been done. And of course, a lot of these were reported years later when those other two stories got in the papers.
Okay.
So, you know, um, and we've got a few more before we sign off here. We'll do a little talk about Rosemary and her legacy in Wisconsin as well. Now, 1989, Elkhorn, Wisconsin, a dairy farmer named Scott Bray. Now, this is the owner of the cattle pasture, and that's probably why it's Bray Road now. It's probably a family name.
Okay.
For it.
I didn't.
Yeah, too, huh? Yeah, I didn't dig into why his name is the same as the road, but maybe that's the farm. Scott reported seeing a dog larger and taller than a German Shepherd. Pretty big.
Okay.
In his pasture one night, this creature was muscular and heavy, covered in brown and gray hair with pointed ears. Gray hair, maybe there's more than one of them. You know, kind of go a little gray here myself. So, you know, kids seem to be bringing that out of me.
The little werewolf cat kitties. You know, maybe you think about this Hotel Transylvania with those little werewolf.
Yeah. So now this also comes from 1989 as well, from Elkhorn too. Russell Geist reports seeing a large dog-like creature that is similar to the last two accounts in appearance. In this case, the creature would approach Russell before running away, but there weren't many details on the sighting, which kind of makes no sense. And then
so it approached him, and then he had nothing else to say.
Yeah.
Did he die? Like, what happened here?
I don't know. And then the last case that we're going to end on, the Beast of Bray Road part of it, is an 11-year-old Heather Bowie in 1990 in Elkhorn reports seeing what she thought was a large dog standing on its hind legs and running away, and she lived near Bray Road.
She's 11.
Yeah. So
a lot of things look big when you're 11.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, all right.
That's what I found in the article.
What do you think?
I have never seen it myself. A lot of this stuff sounds like folklore. A lot of these creatures, I think, are folklore. I think in the future we should cover the Hodag, which we all know is not real, okay?
But it's cute.
But it is a very fun folklore tale.
It is.
It is a very fun one. And I think with these kind of creatures, people need to find a reason to explain things, and that's where these creatures come in. So they see things, and their imagination takes over.
Okay.
So I think it's just a way to explain things for them. So hang in with us for a little longer, and we will cover Rosemary Kennedy next. And welcome back. And this is our bonus content. We did mention that Rosemary was kept at St. Coletta after her lobotomy. So, though John F. Kennedy and his wife Jackie Kennedy might be the most recognizable members of their family, the Kennedys were famous long before John became president. So John's father, Joe Kennedy Sr., was a prominent businessman in Boston with his wife, Rose. Together they had 9 children, and 3 of whom were in politics. For the most part, they did live an open life. They were kind of our version of the royal family.
Right, but like the royal family, they had secrets. And one of their darkest secrets was their eldest daughter, Rosemary Kennedy. And the reason she was more of a secret was not necessarily because of her mental illness and because they struggled raising her, but because of the decision to try a lobotomy with her.
Yes, and so Rosemary Kennedy, she was born September 13th, 1918, in Brookline, Massachusetts. She was their third child, and she was the first girl in the family. Now, I'm not an expert on this, but
You sure? You never had kids?
I've helped make kids, but I've never birthed any. No, I've never birthed any. So, now during her birth, the obstetrician who was supposed to be delivering her was running late. Now, not wanting to deliver the baby without a doctor present, the nurse reached up into Rose's birth canal and held the baby in place.
Now, the actions of that nurse had pretty severe consequences because the lack of oxygen that was given to Rosemary at the time of her birth um, was lost, and that can lead a lifetime of different mental illnesses and traumas to the brain. So she had an everlasting damage to her brain and caused a mental deficiency.
Now, though she looked like the rest of the Kennedys with the bright eyes, the dark hair, she was different right away.
So she was unable to keep up with siblings. She played ball in her yard and run around in the neighborhood, but her lack of inclusion caused her to experience fits, which were later discovered to be more of seizures or episodes relating to her mental deficiencies. But in 1920s, at this time, mental illness was stigmatized, just as they still kind of are now in certain ways.
Mhm.
So, fearing the repercussions that her daughter couldn't keep up, Rose actually pulled Rosemary from school and then would hire a tutor to teach her from home, which wasn't a bad thing to do at the time because, as we know, children can be difficult to each other and the bullying can get pretty severe. And I can guess in the 1920s, it was just as bad as we can see now.
Yeah.
So they did a tutor to teach her from home.
Right.
And then eventually sent her to a boarding school in lieu of doing the institutions because they wanted to not send her away.
Right. And so, but in 1928, um, Joe was named the ambassador to the court of St. James in England. So the entire family moved across the Atlantic and was soon presented at court to the British public. Despite her intellectual challenges, Rosemary joined the family at the presentation in London. Um, Now, on the surface, Rosemary was a promising debutante, and she was clearly she clearly put forth an effort to make her parents proud. Rose once described her as an affectionate, warmly responsive, and loving girl. She was so willing to try to do her best, so appreciative of attention and compliments, and so hopeful of deserving them. Now, of course, most people did not know the extent of Rosemary's troubles, as the Kennedys worked hard to keep it all quiet.
So in England, Rosemary actually had a sense of normalcy. She was placed in a Catholic school run by nuns, and at the time, they were teaching patience with Rosemary. They were training her to be a teacher's aide, and she was actually flourishing and doing well under their guidance. But this won't last very long because in 1940, the Nazis stormed Paris and the Kennedys were forced to move back to the United States. They felt like Rosemary's education can continue in that type of setting, so they sent her to a convent. But it didn't have the same effect as these nuns didn't do the same thing as maybe her last school was doing, and not teaching that patience and working with her strengths. So, according to the John F. Kennedy Presidential Library and Museum, Rosemary's sister is it Eunice or Enos?
Enos, I would say.
If I said that wrong, I apologize. Later penned that Rosemary was not making progress and seemed to be instead kind of going backwards. At 22, she became difficult, irritable, had fits of violent rages, would throw vases across rooms. So these rages were concerning to everybody. And on top of that, she was doing a lot of sneaking out of the location, going to local bars, meeting different men. But Joe was trying to groom his kids, his two older boys, for careers in politics. So this is kind of where I feel like politics and royalty come together, because even in the English monarchy, and we'll discuss that later about how incredibly nerdy I am about that, the persona that everything has to be perfect and your life has to be great and your kids have to be great continued on even here in the States.
Plus, with his two sons being groomed for politics, if Rosemary's actions came out, or she got pregnant, or got a disease or something from her actions, and kind of being the way she was at that time, that would have been a stain on the family. So they were really worried about their image.
Yeah.
So at the so Dr. Walter Freeman appeared to have a solution for their problem, and this is the guy who
he was controversial. He was a neurologist, but he was controversial, and he was one of the ones that really started lobotomy, especially the procedure of the ice pick kind of going in through the eye and into the prefrontal cortex.
And when this technology or this style of fixing things came out, this was kind of a fix-all like procedure. So if you had if you're having like mental issues, the lobotomy they thought was the way to cure it all, and it was widely recommended by physicians at that time. So despite the excitement, however, there were many warnings to the lobotomy. Though occasionally effective, it was also known to be destructive. One woman described her daughter, the recipient, as being the same person on the outside, but like a new human inside.
Yeah. Yep.
So despite the ups, there were a lot of downs. But Joe needed no convincing to sign Rosemary up for the procedure, as it seemed like this was the last hope to cure her.
Right. It was that Dr. Freeman had actually diagnosed her with, let me try to get this right, agitated depression, and then promised that the lobotomy would put an end to rages and render more of a happy and content type of personality. So in the fall of 41, Dr. Freeman, with Dr. James Watts, performed the prefrontal lobotomy on Rosemary at the George Washington University Hospital.
And so the I don't know, do you want to explain the procedure, kind of?
I think it would be really awesome if we were, because the procedure can get so detailed that I want to make sure that we really cover it well. So we should do this in another episode. We'll really discuss lobotomies, and then we kind of discuss the pros and maybe success stories, if there are any. And then like the negative stories.
Yeah, let's do that. I think we can, because we're already getting quite lengthy already. But immediately after the procedure, the Kennedys realized something was wrong with their daughter. Not only had the operation failed to cure her of her intellectual challenges, but it left her extremely disabled. She could no longer speak or walk properly. So they moved her to an institution and spent several months in physical therapy before she regained normal movement. And her history with this in the St. Coletta in 1949 is when she was taken there to be taken care of by the nuns there. the asylum side of St. Coletta.
Right. And you've got to think about it now that we know more about the brain. The prefrontal cortex is really that executive portion of your brain, is the pilot of your brain. So it controls all your executive functions, it directs thought process, it makes you think of consequences, so it gives you that long term consequential thinking. So if you're putting something into your prefrontal cortex and then severing certain nerves or severing certain tissues, you're changing the entire personality of somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I think when we do our bigger segment, it's going to really dive deeper into what could go wrong when you're messing with the prefrontal cortex of your brain and what that actually entails when you change an entire personality. Because you can say, yes, it fixed it, but did it really? Or did you just make that person numb?
Now, on a positive note here, at one point, the family realized what they had done to Rosemary, and they did begin to champion rights for disabled people in America. And that was after her family did not visit her for 20 years. While she was shuttered away in an institution, they basically hid her away for their political gain.
Yep.
And it wasn't until after Joe suffered a massive stroke that Rose went to see her daughter again. And in a panicked rage, Rosemary attacked her during their reunion, and because she was unable to express herself in any other way. John F. Kennedy would go on to use his presidency to sign the Maternal and Child Health and Mental Retardation Program Amendment to the Social Security Act, and it was a precursor to the Americans with Disabilities Act, which his brother Ted pushed for during his time as a senator.
Eunice
Eunice
Kennedy. The younger sister also founded the Special Olympics in 1962 to champion achievement and accomplishments for disabled people.
So some good came out of this, but after being reunited with her family, Rosemary Kennedy lived out her rest of her days at St. Coletta's, a residential care facility in Jefferson, Wisconsin, where she died at 86 in 2005. So she was lobotomized at 23, and she was basically, what term would you put that? A zombie almost? Or
childlike,
toddler-like. Yeah, toddler-like. She was undeveloped and just a shell of what she could have been. They took her life away from her, and she basically
just lived in her home in St. Coletta's until she was 86. That's what she knew after.
So she would have been at St. Coletta's during all those sightings. Some of them.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we're circling right back to the Beast here.
So that is all we have for you on the Beast of Bray Road and a little look into Rosemary, which kind of dovetailed us into another topic to do in the future. This has been a Dead Squirrel in the Woods Productions. If you liked what you were listening to, please click that subscribe button and be notified of any new episodes. And thank you for listening.